Hello and welcome back to the F1 2018 Kimi Career. It's round 7 of the championship mode at Canada today. We're 6 races in and so far we have had 4 different race winners. Valtteri Bottas, the championship leader, has got 2 to his name. Daniel Ricciardo has got 2 as well, and both the Ferrari drivers have got 1 apiece. So Valtteri Bottas had a pretty perfect start to the season, 5 podiums in the first 5 races, but for the first time in Monaco, he didn't get on the podium. He ran into the back of us. Well, I was running in 3rd and Bottas was running 4th, and that meant he had front wing damage and couldn't keep up towards the end of the race. But it was a race that Vettel and Ricciardo dominated. It ended as qualifying ended. Vettel just couldn't get by Daniel Ricciardo, so he made his 2nd win of the Formula 1 season. Lewis Hamilton, another not so great weekend again, and it just looks like a season that he isn't going to get much luck unless he starts performing very, very quickly. But we move on to Canada today. Crucially, in that championship race, Vettel is the only one of the top 3 to have had a DNF so far. So Vettel really should be at the front of that championship. He was running 2nd in Spain behind Raikkonen when he had a mechanical failure. So had he not retired from that race, he would be above Valtteri Bottas. But nevertheless, this is more and more looking like a 3-horse race for the World Championship, with Daniel Ricciardo's 2 wins making him look a little bit better than he is. 50 points in 2 rounds and 25 points in the other 4, albeit again Ricciardo and Lewis have both had mechanical failures in this series, and Max Verstappen not really getting off to the best start either, with 2 DNFs for him. But we move on to Canada today, one of my favourite tracks to drive, so hopefully that will bring Kimi some more success. We're going to aim for a podium as a minimum. A race win would be lovely. Coming up to the end of our banker lap then in qualifying, we're a couple of tenths off Sebastian Vettel in the first 2 sectors. We recover though in that last sector. We're only 1800ths behind our teammate at the moment. It's a Ferrari 1-2, but it's early days in this session. Lewis Hamilton running P3 so far. We're going to run 2 laps on this first run. Doesn't look like tyre wear's too bad for us to go and do a couple of laps. So hopefully this is again a minor improvement, but a good start for Scuderia Ferrari. No improvement at the end of that 2nd lap. We were about half a tenth off our first lap, but the definite improvement that we can see here is in that first sector. A session theoretical best of a 109.4. We're faster than Seb in the 3rd sector. Half a tenth off, nearly a tenth in the 2nd sector, but that first sector is really where we can improve and get those 2 tenths back. So at the moment it's a Ferrari 1-2. Valtteri Bottas only running P5, and again Max Verstappen starts the season. We've spoke about it briefly, but not in the same vein of how Lewis Hamilton has struggled. It's fair to say that Daniel Ricciardo is really carrying that Red Bull team so far. Max Verstappen just can't seem to compete. But looking at our own race today, it's a front row as a minimum at the moment. We're going to have one more go at it later on in the session. But at the moment, it's looking good. So Seb's just improved his lap time. He's gone out there quite early on, so there's more lap time in this track, you would suggest. It's a 109.2, which you can see he's took purple throughout all the sectors, so there's no doubt that that is the best lap of the session. And we've got to do something to match that, but he's quite early in coming out. You can see a lot of the front runners haven't gone out yet. Quite surprised me that Seb has picked this time to go out. But nevertheless, a couple of attempts that we thought we'd have to gain, all of a sudden, it's a big gain that we've got to get. And with Seb coming in for his in-lap, you would suggest that's all that Vettel's got to offer. But he's got nearly a half-second gap on the rest of the field at the moment. So we spoke about the first sector as being the one we wanted to improve. We are a tenth up in that sector and just 300ths behind Sebastian Vettel in that first sector. Lewis Hamilton has took 2nd so far, but it looks like he can't take pole position off of Sebastian Vettel. I think our minimum aim here has to be trying to take that 2nd place off Lewis Hamilton. But that 2nd sector, I don't think was much of an improvement. We're 3 tenths behind Sebastian Vettel at the moment, so I don't think that 109.2 is going to be attainable for us. I think we pretty much hit the limit of what we can do. You can see the delta is just shy of a tenth up. I don't know what Lewis Hamilton's lap time was, but coming through the final corner, what can it be? Had a better run out of the final chicane. It's a tenth and a half better, but it can't put us up to 2nd place. So 3rd is going to be the best we can do in this qualifying session. Let's see how the likes of Ricciardo, Bottas and Verstappen have done on their final runs. We've seen hints of it so far this season, but not truly until this qualifying session of the 2 expected championship protagonists come together to form the front row of the grid. So it's Sebastian Vettel who takes a very solid pole. Behind him is Lewis Hamilton. We kept our 3rd place. Daniel Ricciardo, Bottas and Verstappen couldn't improve. Valtteri Bottas starts only 5th. I think he's got to be a bit disappointed with that. But surely the driver of the day has got to be Charles Leclerc, who qualifies P7 in front of both the Renaults, both the Force Indias. Carlos Sainz is quite a way back, so not a good day for him, P15. His teammate, Marcus Ericsson, is down in P19, so to take that Sauber up to P7 is a mighty achievement for the Monegasque driver.
Thank you all for joining us today for another exciting round of this championship season.
Okay, the run into turn 1 isn't too long, so the pack will be bunched up. Take care.
Roger that, understood. I think it's going to be the similar pitch strategy. I don't think in these 25% races you're going to have much variation. I don't think there's much point here, or really at many circuits, taking what is the slower tyre and doing an overcut. There's possibility for it potentially, but again, I don't think here there's much point having much deviation from the rest of the field. So our aim today, obviously, is to win. That's the aim in every Grand Prix. But if we can finish ahead of Lewis Hamilton, that'd be fantastic. Not give him a sniff of coming back into the championship fight. I think the key for today, actually, is just that one Ferrari wins. Whether it's us, whether it's Seb, we want to go for the championship, but as a worst bet, we want to try and help our teammate win that championship rather than Valtteri Bottas. Bottas is starting P5, so he's got a bit of work to do today. We'll have to see what our pace is like, though, whether we can get involved in that lead battle. Looking at qualifying, we are a little bit off on terms of qualifying pace. We don't know what we're going to be like in terms of race pace. I did about 8 or 9 laps in time trial before this and feel quite comfortable with the circuit. But with those 2 laps we set in qualifying, you would say we found our limit, as our engineer has put and given me a bit of a memo to say. No issues with weather today. It's going to be clear all day, so no threat of rain at the Canada circuit, which of course can sometimes happen and play havoc with this Grand Prix. But it's going to be another good one, I think. Daniel Ricciardo just behind us. He's been competitive throughout the season so far. So it should be an interesting battle at the front for this Canadian Grand Prix. Here we go then, the drivers forming on the grid. We have got the inside line for turn 1, but unfortunately that is then the outside for turn 2. So I think we're going to struggle to do much against Lewis Hamilton. Notice the next corner again is a right-hander, but let's just focus on trying to retain our position as a minimum. Here we go then, the lights illuminate above the drivers. We've got 5 lights here at the circuit, Gilles Villeneuve. And we're away for the Canadian Grand Prix. It's a good start, but Lewis Hamilton just seems to pull away a little bit in that second phase. He leaves us room up the inside into the first corner. We're going to do the same and give him the respect, the racing room he deserves. We get pushed out a little bit there, but nothing drastic as Sebastian Vettel keeps his first place. Fortunately, I think we distracted Lewis Hamilton enough for him not to go for that first ahead of Sebastian Vettel. But again, it's a start where we retain our position. That was the minimum aim. I feel like even in these early stages of lap 1, that the 2 in front of us are just dragging away, and I don't think we're going to compete with them. I think the key really is to stay in their DRS, but even in these early stages, we are struggling to keep within a second. Valtteri Bottas is just behind us. You can see that arrow is getting very close. Is he going to dart down into the hairpin? He doesn't. We're 9 tenths behind Lewis Hamilton already here, so I think the win is going to be a little bit too far away from us today. The key thing here will be keeping Valtteri Bottas in behind, who has got past the Red Bull of Daniel Ricciardo on the opening lap. Hopefully as we settle in we can have a better second lap. Let's just stay with it until the end of this first lap, see what the gap is to Lewis. I feel like we might have gained somewhat in that third sector. We're 8 tenths behind, so we've got to have a much better lap this time to stay in the DRS of Lewis. So Lewis is just in our sight, but unfortunately we have lost the DRS to Lewis, so it does appear that it could be a 2-horse race in this Grand Prix, unfortunately. Valtteri Bottas is just behind us, not threatening too much, I would say, on this lap. Looks like Charles Leclerc has retained 7th place, and he's battling with the Red Bulls at the moment, so that would be a fantastic result for the Sauber driver if he stays there. Looks like Lewis is pretty close to Vettel though, so yeah, he's gained 3 tenths on him this lap. We're only 1.1 behind Lewis Hamilton though, so again, we're in that sort of margin for DRS. Let's stick with it throughout this first sector. I don't think we're going to get DRS on this lap, but let's stick with it anyway. Just don't seem to have the confidence that I did in qualifying to take the pace around these corners. No doubt impacted by the fact that we are running with much higher fuel with a race setup. But again, it's 1.1, so we were on terms with Lewis in that first sector. But I think now that Lewis has got DRS on Sebastian Vettel, and obviously Bottas is a driver we're going to have to watch out for behind, I think that chance is probably gone of being in that front battle, at least for the moment anyway. We've got a battle between the two front runners, and it seems like Vettel has slowed Hamilton down significantly at that final corner. So we've got the run on both of them here. Can we go up the inside? Oh, it's not quite the room. Vettel pushes Hamilton to the inside. This is finally what we wanted to see between these two drivers. After 7 rounds this year, finally Lewis has got his act together and he's pushed past Sebastian Vettel. But now Vettel, oh, we run into the back of Seb. How did we not have any damage there? This is a fantastic battle at the front that I'm trying my best to commentate on and focus on driving and focus on not running in the back of any of these drivers all at the same time. Well, that was certainly unexpected. Valtteri Bottas getting involved here. We have to make sure we don't get overtaken by Valtteri. The trouble is now I don't want to take too many risks against our teammate Sebastian Vettel, but all the same it is probably that mantra of overtake or be overtaken here. Lewis is past Sebastian Vettel, so he leads for the first time in a long time. But crucially, because it is all truncated and built up now, we are in that DRS train. So is Seb going to have the same impact that Lewis did against him on the last lap? Let's see. He's getting very close, coming into the chicane. Surely he's not going to go up the inside there. He does. He goes up the inside, and we are in the lead of this Canadian Grand Prix. The two of them went into that final corner and, well, really slowed one another up. And we had the momentum. And unbelievably, a lap after saying, well, I don't think we've got much of a chance here, we lead the Canadian Grand Prix. It's been a horrible lap for Sebastian Vettel, who tried to take the lead a couple of corners ago, and now he's down to P4. I think we're going to lose the lead on this lap, but if we can stay in the DRS train, then we're always going to have a chance. There's a problem, though, for somebody. Lewis Hamilton's blew up again! This is just not Lewis Hamilton's season whatsoever. Lewis Hamilton, I think with an engine failure, there was certainly smoke. And Lewis Hamilton, he just doesn't seem to get any luck in this championship season whatsoever. Doesn't say that Lewis is retired yet, but surely that is going to be Lewis Hamilton out the race. He's not even on the mini-map. Surely he's still on that straight. And now it has been confirmed. Lewis Hamilton is out of the race. That helped set a bunch, considering that Bottas and Vettel were held up behind Lewis Hamilton. And we have got a massive amount of luck there. But Lewis Hamilton, surely at this stage, he's already 60-odd points behind Valtteri Bottas. You have to say he could be out the championship race, and it appears that Bottas has had contact with Lewis because he's into the pits very early at the end of lap 5. Well, there is the stricken Mercedes to the right-hand side of the track. He did manage to get down that last straight, but his car just gave up on him. So Sebastian Vettel at the moment runs P2. Looks like we're being told to box this lap, so I suppose it could have just been an early pit stop from Valtteri Bottas. I don't know, it seems very early to have come in though. I don't think he's going to get the undercut either. I could see on the minimap he was being held up behind some traffic. Probably the Williams cars there, so that's not going to help him whatsoever. But we haven't got much in way of traffic behind us. We've got a pretty clear pit lane, which owes pretty well to the advantage we had at the front behind the midfield runners. And looking at the pit lane, there's not a lot of drivers that have come in so far, but look at that train behind that Renault of 4 or 5 cars. We could do with getting out ahead of that, so I think we have done. Nico Hülkenberg, though, only a few seconds behind. Where's Valtteri Bottas in all this? He's not ahead of us. He is in that train with Nico Hülkenberg, so the two Mercedes drivers have had a horrible couple of laps. Of course, it's been race ending for Lewis Hamilton, but Valtteri Bottas in behind Nico Hülkenberg. So this is already, well, it's wiped both Mercedes, you would think, out of the battle. It's brought Daniel Ricciardo into this. You would say that Vettel and Seb were... Vettel and Seb, well, I suppose they are one of the same people. Vettel and Danny Rick are going to pit at the end of this lap, you would have thought. But that being said, Max Verstappen hasn't pit yet. So it could have been an early stop for us, potentially. But let's see what happens when the two front runners come out of the pit. So we're going to retain the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix. So Seb's in. Seb is in the pits. We've got a run on Romain Grosjean. This should be fairly easy pickings, I think. He's harvesting energy down the straight. So we'll take advantage of that DRS from Romain Grosjean. I'm not sure if it's a double DRS here. It certainly is. So we get 2 doses of DRS for the price of one. Sergio Perez is still out there. There's Ricciardo and Vettel. They've both pitted. Of course, you get a bit of an advantage at the end of the pit lane, so it's always a bit misleading. But we are still out in front in this Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas is now P4, I think. He's in behind, well, a net P4 if you like, in behind Daniel Ricciardo, but quite a way behind the Red Bull driver. So nothing's changed in those pit stops. We've got a bit of traffic, so seems like the pit strategies are varying a little bit here. Maybe we did come in a lap earlier than the rest of the team started to pit, so you would hope that this traffic will come in at the end of this lap. But so far, you could see the Grosjean overtake was fairly easy to do. He didn't hold us up, and I think the same should apply for Carlos Sainz, and I would have thought that the three drivers ahead of him should be pitting at the end of this lap. Daniel Ricciardo's definitely lost some ground in this round of pit stops. He was right in behind Sebastian Vettel, but he's a couple of seconds behind now. But you can see that Seb's not a couple of seconds behind us. He's only a couple of attempts behind. We saw early on that Sebastian and Lewis were pulling out quite a gap at the front. This game just doesn't want to see Sebastian Vettel against Lewis Hamilton. It feels like fate has got other ideas. Is Vettel going to go up the inside? No, he's not. So we're not going to defend ground that's not there. Ultimately, though, we're not going to defend at all against our teammate. But we're not going to slow down or let him through just because he's not had that much of a go against us. In fact, he's not really made any sort of move so far, which is surprising because the DRS seemed to have caught up a massive amount on those two straights in the battle with Lewis and Seb earlier on. Doesn't seem like that's the case so far. Also want to note that we don't hold up Seb here. We don't want Daniel Ricciardo to get back into this battle. It's still 2.3 the gap, so I don't think he's gaining significantly. But we're going to keep an eye on that nevertheless. I think we're getting just as good enough a run out of the hairpin to avoid Seb getting close enough to make a challenge into this last corner. So that's probably helping us out so far. You can see Seb, again, he's probably just about too far behind to make a move. So this is a bit surprising. I did think a couple of laps ago, when Seb was only a couple of attempts behind, that would be it. That Seb would fly past and that would be it for the race. But early days yet. We've still got 8 laps to go here. Not a great run out of that corner, and Seb's a lot closer this time. We give him the room to make the overtake. We should have the DRS going into the next... Oh, Seb!
Be careful with the front wing. You've taken some minor damage.
Almost brake tested us into that run of corners. The AI around this track seemed to be a little bit silly. You know, we made light of the fact that the Sebastian and Lewis were slowing each other down into the last chicane, but it wasn't really necessary, and it seems like after Seb made that move in that corner, he just completely slowed down, which took me by surprise. Seb's going to make a move into the final corner, so again he locks his tyres, and we have to take nearly evasive action, but look at that, that's done now. Daniel Ricciardo is now in this battle. That wing damage, I don't know how much that's going to do for us. Is Seb going to sail off into the distance here? I'm not too sure. He has gained a little bit. We need to stay in that DRS really for Daniel Ricciardo not to have any hopes of getting second place. But damn, Seb, we tried our best in previous races and here to be respectful to our teammate. But a couple of times in China, you would say that Seb could have cost us the win by not letting us through a bit easier. And just something silly there by taking off a bit of our front wing, exposing some front downforce, could leave us under massive pressure against Daniel Ricciardo in the fight for second. Just about hanging on to the coattails of DRS here, but our advantage out of that hairpin has pretty much gone, I would say, purely because of the lack of turning we've got with that front wing. But it's not terminal damage. You can see that we're not losing seconds a lap, but I do think staying in that DRS is going to be crucial for the rest of this race to stave off Danny Rick behind. Well, we've lost DRS now, and you'd think we'll probably be a sitting duck to Daniel Ricciardo on this next straight. He's only a tenth and a half behind. But again, in fairness, even with that bit of damage on the front wing, we are able to get out of that corner a little bit better, it seems, than Danny Rick. He's got DRS. Let's see. He's not going to damage into have any attempt into the last corner. But let's see what he's like on the front straight. Again, we have a good third sector, which has helped us out. Valtteri Bottas into the pits again. Well, it's not a good race for Mercedes at all, this. So this is just a pure opportunity, really, in the championship fight to gain points on Valtteri Bottas, because you would think with a second pit stop, Valtteri Bottas will probably end up out the points. No idea what that's all about. Is that purely strategy? Well, it's like a Ferrari-esque strategy if that's the case, but surely I don't get it, because Bottas wasn't running close to any traffic. Again, I wouldn't have thought there'd be any damage on that car, like I assume there was in the reason that he pitted early because of the potential contact with Lewis Hamilton after he retired. But a really bad race for Mercedes today. Daniel Ricciardo's still got DRS, but he hasn't made any sort of inroads on us. He's not made a big attempt to overtake yet. And crucially, on the last lap, we held our gap at 1.9 seconds to Sebastian Vettel out in front. Valtteri Bottas with a fastest lap, not really a surprise, given that he's coming for, I suspect, new tyres again. That said, we've got 2 laps of fuel left there. That surely isn't right, because we're still on the right side of the delta with 2.5 to go. Yellow flag. What's that for? What's that for up in front? It's not Seb. I don't think it's Seb. Has somebody else had a problem? Somebody else is going very slowly, are they, on the minimap there? That is Pierre Gasly. That's fine. I did think surely Sebastian hasn't blew up as well and given us a chance in this race. That yellow flag going for a long time, but no, that's fine. Panic over. So, looks like it should be P2 for us in this race, unless Daniel Ricciardo gets on with it. But equally, we've got to watch the fuel here. We are very close to burning it up. We did some fuel saving on that last lap, so fuel-wise we are okay. We've got 0.2 of a delta, which should be fine. That has reeled Daniel Ricciardo in a little bit, but again, he's not made any sort of attempt to overtake so far. As we come on to the last lap, is Danny Rick going to lick the stamp and send it here? Possibly, but he's nearly half a second behind coming into the first of 3 DRS zones. He gained slightly, but nothing drastically. So we're okay for the moment. The second DRS zone, I think, is going to be the biggest threat. But again, we know that we have a good run out of the hairpin. Looks like Sebastian Vettel is going to take his second win of this season in somewhat controversial circumstances. I would have liked to go to have potentially tried to beat Seb if we hadn't got that front wing damage. But all things considered, a podium place as a minimum is going to be a strong finish considering that damage. And also considering how bad a day Mercedes have had today. Daniel Ricciardo losing pace on that straight, so he just didn't seem to have the pace, even though he had the DRS, to compete. And it's a very good day for Ferrari. It's a 1-2. I think, if I'm not mistaken, our first 1-2 of the season. I'd have liked to have ended the other way around, but it is what it is. After qualifying third, the aim at the start was to try and beat Lewis Hamilton, and as long as one Ferrari won today, that was the main aim. That's what's happened. Again, a lot of what-ifs in this race. It would have been nice to have seen Lewis Hamilton able to fight for longer, but his season just goes from bad to worse. He loses another 25 points to Sebastian Vettel in the title race. And you have to say at this early stage, it is going to take a heroic effort from Lewis Hamilton to get back into it. But crucially, Valtteri Bottas was leading the championship. I don't know where Valtteri finished, but is it possible that Valtteri Bottas could have lost the championship lead? We'll have a look. But it's a very happy Ferrari team who have finished 1-2 here. A decent finish for Carlos Sainz being highlighted there in P8. Daniel Ricciardo again consistent in third place. Another 15 points for him. We'll have to see how Max Verstappen finished off. And another point of interest is how Charles Leclerc got on. He was P7 on the grid. Lewis Hamilton went out of the race. Valtteri Bottas pitted twice. Is it possible that Charles Leclerc had a very nice finish? We'll find out in a second. But the champagne is sprayed. Sebastian Vettel wins his second race of the season. Got second place last time out in Monaco. Was robbed of a second place in Spain by that DNF. So it's been very consistent for Ferrari so far. That is going to serve us well in the Constructors. But there's the top 3. And let's see who took P4. And it was Valtteri Bottas who took P4. But look at that. Charles Leclerc finishes in P5. Very strong position there for the Monegasque driver. More points for the Sauber team. But a good showing from Kevin Magnussen, who finishes in P6 after qualifying P11. Max Verstappen just hasn't really got it, had he? Down in P7 once again. The last point scorers, Carlos Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg. A good race from Carlos from P15. And Esteban Ocon in P9. And Nico Hülkenberg in P10. Sergio Perez just about missing out on the points. But let's have a look at the standings after that. And Valtteri Bottas still leads the World Championship, but only just. 2 points is the gap between Valtteri and Sebastian Vettel. We sit in 11 points behind Valtteri Bottas, and although we said we could potentially write Daniel Ricciardo off, he is still waiting in the wings, possibly, to launch a championship fight. But Lewis Hamilton is such a long way back. That is going to leave Mercedes a long way back in the constructors now. That battle was one that looked finely poised early on, but we're 64 points ahead of Mercedes now. Red Bull 103 behind of Ferrari, but in touch really with Mercedes. Renault were a strong P4, Haas P5, Force India P6. That strong result from Charles Leclerc puts Alfa Romeo ahead of McLaren. Toro Rosso are still on 6 points. I think the only points they've scored this season was the 7th place from Brendan Hartley in the opener at Australia. And Williams are still pointless. But a good race for us today. A Ferrari 1-2, not the way that I would have liked to have seen it. It would have been nice to get a second win. And I think we possibly had the pace. Again, it would have been great to have seen if we could have took the battle to Sebastian, if we hadn't got that front wing damage. But all things considered, a very strong race for us and the Scuderia today. So if you enjoyed that one, make sure to leave a like down below. Subscribe for regular F1 2018 content. Again, thank you so much for your support on these videos. These are doing a lot better than I'd expect, and I'm having a really good time recording them. And it seems that you guys are enjoying them too, so I really appreciate your support. But thank you very much for your company today. I have been Toby from TIJ Gaming, and until the next time, I'll catch you all later.